Marriage is like leftovers in the fridge. Eventually, it all goes cold, and you're left wondering why you bothered keeping it around in the first place. I'm Neil Carson, 44 years old, and I've been married to Dana for 12 years. 12 years of what I thought was happiness until I realized I'd been eating emotional scraps while she was dining out somewhere else. The first sign something was wrong came on a Tuesday morning in March. Dana was standing at our kitchen counter, scrolling through her phone with that secretive smile she used to save for me. Her coffee sat untouched, steam rising like the tension between us. "You're up early," I said, pouring myself a cup from the pot she'd made. "Girls' night planning," she replied without looking up. "Shelley wants to try that new place downtown." Girls' night. The phrase that had become as common in our house as "pass the salt" or "did you pay the electric bill?" Dana had been having a lot of girls' nights lately, 3 times a week, sometimes 4. Either she and her friends had developed an insatiable appetite for overpriced cocktails, or something else was going on. I work at Henderson Warehouse, supervising the night shift. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills and gives me plenty of time to think. Too much time, as it turns out. When you spend 8 hours watching forklifts move pallets around, your mind starts connecting dots you'd rather leave scattered. Dana works for premier events, planning corporate parties and weddings. She's good at it. Charismatic, organized, the kind of person who can make a conference room feel like a ballroom. At least that's what I used to think. Now I wondered what else she was good at organizing. "Which girls?" I asked, settling into my chair at our small kitchen table. "The usual crowd, Shelley, Tara, maybe Jessica." She finally looked up, and I caught something in her eyes. Guilt? Annoyance? "Why?" "Just curious. Seems like you see them more than you see me these days." Dana's laugh sounded forced. "Don't be dramatic, Neil. We live together." Living together. Not we're married or we're partners. Living together like roommates splitting rent. The coffee suddenly tasted bitter in my mouth. "Right," I said. "Living together." She went back to her phone, thumbs flying across the screen. I watched her face in the morning light streaming through our kitchen window. She was still beautiful. Auburn hair, green eyes that used to light up when she looked at me. Now those eyes were focused on whatever was happening in that little glowing rectangle. My phone buzzed. A text from Pete, my buddy at work. "Overtime available tonight if you want it. Johnson called in sick." I looked at Dana, still absorbed in her digital world, and typed back, "Sure, need the money." But it wasn't about the money. It was about having somewhere to go, something to do besides sit in our house and pretend everything was normal. That evening, Dana was getting ready for another girls' night. I watched from our bedroom doorway as she applied makeup with the kind of care usually reserved for job interviews or first dates. "New dress?" I asked. She glanced at me in the mirror. "This old thing? I've had it for months." The tags were still attached to the sleeve. Nordstrom $180. I'd never seen it before in my life. "Looks nice," I said. "Thanks." She turned around, smoothing the fabric over her hips. "Don't wait up? Shelley wants to hit a few places?" "Sure, have fun." She kissed my cheek, a quick peck that felt more like an obligation than affection. "Love you." "Love you too." The words came automatically, muscle memory from 12 years of marriage. But as I watched her grab her purse and head for the door, I wondered when we'd both stopped meaning them. After she left, I sat in our living room, staring at the TV without really watching it. The house felt empty in a way that had nothing to do with Dana being gone. It had felt empty even when she was here. My phone rang. "Pete." "Hey man, change of plans." "Johnson showed up after all. No overtime tonight." "Okay, thanks for letting me know." "You sound disappointed. Trouble in paradise?" Pete had been divorced twice. He had a radar for marital problems that was both impressive and depressing. "Just tired," I said. "Right. Well, if you need to talk, you know where to find me. I'll be at Murphy's Bar, drowning my sorrows in cheap beer and expensive regret." After he hung up, I wandered around our house like a ghost haunting his own life. In Dana's office, I noticed her laptop was still open. The screen was dark, but when I moved the mouse, it came to life. I shouldn't have looked. I knew that even as I was doing it. But marriage is built on trust, and when that trust starts cracking, curiosity seeps through like water through a broken dam. Her email was open, nothing suspicious in the inbox, just work stuff and spam. But then I saw the recently deleted folder. My finger hovered over the mouse button. "Don't do it," the rational part of my brain said. "This is how marriages die." But maybe our marriage was already dead, and I just hadn't admitted it yet. I clicked. The first email was from someone named Greg Mathis. The subject line read, "Last night was incredible." My stomach dropped like an elevator with cut cables. I opened the email. Dana, I can't stop thinking about you, the way you looked at me, the way you felt in my arms. I know this is complicated, but I need to see you again. Soon. G. The email was dated 3 days ago. 3 days ago, Dana had come home from a girls' night at 2 a.m., smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. I scrolled down. There were more emails, going back weeks. A digital trail of an affair laid out in Times New Roman font. Greg Mathis, fitness trainer at Elite Gym downtown. 39 years old, divorced, drove a red Mustang. The details were all there, courtesy of social media stalking that Dana had apparently been doing. She'd screenshotted his Instagram posts, saved photos of him shirtless and flexing. There were hotel receipts forwarded to her personal email, dinner reservations at restaurants we'd never been to together. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through months of deception. Every girls' night, every late meeting, every time she'd been too tired to spend time with me, it all made sense now. The worst part wasn't the cheating itself. It was how stupid I felt for not seeing it sooner. The signs had been there like neon billboards, and I'd been driving past them with my eyes closed. I closed the laptop and went to the kitchen, pouring myself 3 fingers of whiskey. Then I sat at our table and tried to figure out what the hell I was going to do. Divorce was the obvious answer. Lawyer up, split the assets, move on with my life. But something inside me rebelled against the idea of just walking away. Dana had made a fool of me for months. She'd lied to my face, stolen time from our marriage to give to someone else, and turned our home into a launching pad for her secret life. Maybe it was pride, or maybe it was anger, but I wanted her to face consequences beyond just losing a husband she clearly didn't want anyway. I was still sitting there, whiskey burning in my throat and rage burning in my chest when I heard her car in the driveway. It was 1:30 a.m. Dana came through the front door, heels in her hand, trying to be quiet. She froze when she saw me at the kitchen table. "You're still up," she said. "Couldn't sleep." She studied my face, and I wondered what she saw there. Did I look different now that I knew the truth? Did betrayal leave visible marks? "Everything okay?" she asked. "Fine. How was girls' night?" "Good. We went to that new place I mentioned, then ended up at Tara's apartment talking until late." Another lie, delivered with the same casual ease as asking about the weather. I almost admired her skill. "Sounds fun," I said. She nodded and headed toward our bedroom. "I'm exhausted. See you in the morning?" "Sure." But I didn't see her in the morning. I left for work early before she woke up. I needed time to think, to plan, because one thing had become crystal clear during my sleepless night. I wasn't going to just roll over and let Dana Carson destroy our marriage without consequences. If she wanted to play games, I'd play along, but I'd be playing by my own rules. The next few days passed in a strange fog of normalcy. Dana went to work, came home, made dinner, and we sat across from each other at our kitchen table making small talk like actors in a play neither of us wanted to be in. But I was watching now. Really watching. I noticed how she kept her phone face down during dinner, how she'd suddenly developed an interest in going to the gym, for my health, she said, how she'd started doing laundry more often. Always. Washing her own clothes separately. On Thursday, she announced another girls' night. "2 this week?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Shelley's going through a rough patch with Mike. She needs support." Shelley's marriage problems were becoming quite convenient for Dana's social calendar. "That's nice of you to be there for her." Dana smiled, the same smile she'd given me for 12 years. "That's what friends are for." After she left, I made a decision that would have seemed insane to me a week earlier. I got in my car and followed her. Dana drove downtown, but instead of heading to any of the bars or restaurants where she supposedly spent her girls' nights, she pulled into the parking lot of the Riverside Inn. It was the kind of motel that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions. My heart hammered against my ribs as I watched from across the street. 5 minutes later, a red Mustang pulled up next to her car. Greg Mathis stepped out, and even from a distance, I could see why Dana was attracted to him. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, muscular, the kind of guy who looked like he belonged in a cologne commercial. Dana got out of her car and walked straight into his arms. They kissed in the parking lot like teenagers, her hands running through his hair, his hands on her waist. Then they disappeared into room 237. I sat in my car for 2 hours, staring at that door, feeling something inside me crystallize into cold, hard resolve. When they finally came out, Dana's hair was messed up and Greg was tucking his shirt in. They kissed again before getting into their separate cars. Dana came home at midnight, slipping into bed next to me and whispering, "Sorry I'm so late. Shelley really needed to talk." I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathing, and started planning. The next morning, while Dana was in the shower, I went through her purse. Tucked behind her credit cards was a key card from the Riverside Inn. Room 237. I took a photo of it with my phone, then put everything back exactly as I'd found it. At work that day, I couldn't concentrate. Pete noticed. "You look like hell," he said during our break. "Thanks. You really know how to make a guy feel better." "I'm serious. What's going on?" I considered telling him. Pete was a good friend, and he'd been through his own marital disasters. But this felt too raw, too personal. "Just tired," I said. "Right. And I'm the King of England." Pete lit a cigarette and studied me. "Look, I don't know what's happening at home, but whatever it is, don't do anything stupid." "Define stupid." "Anything that ends with you in jail or on the evening news." I laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Don't worry, I'm not the violent type." "It's not the violent types you have to worry about," Pete said. "It's the quiet ones who snap." That weekend, Dana announced she was going shopping with Tara. "Girl stuff," she said with a wave of her hand. "Boring for you anyway." After she left, I did something I'd never done in 12 years of marriage. I searched our house. In her dresser drawer, underneath her workout clothes, I found a receipt from Victoria's Secret. Lingerie I'd never seen, purchased the same day as her first email from Greg. In her car, tucked under the passenger seat, was a bottle of cologne. Not mine. But the real discovery was in her office, in a folder marked insurance papers. Mixed in with our homeowner's policy and car insurance was a printed email from Greg, along with several photos. Pictures of them together at restaurants, at the motel, in his apartment. Dana was keeping trophies. I photographed everything with my phone, then put it all back. Evidence. I was building a case, though I wasn't sure yet what I planned to do with it. That evening, Dana was unusually affectionate. She made my favorite dinner, opened a bottle of wine, and actually seemed interested in talking to me. "I feel like we haven't connected much lately," she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "Really? I hadn't noticed." She studied my face. "Are you okay, Neil? You seem different." "Different how?" "I don't know. Distant. Cold." The word hung in the air between us. Cold. If she only knew how cold I was becoming. "Just work stress," I said. "Maybe we should plan a vacation, get away somewhere, just the two of us." The irony was staggering. She was planning getaways with Greg while suggesting romantic trips with me. I wondered if she was trying to assuage her guilt or just maintain her cover story. "That sounds nice," I said. "When were you thinking?" "I don't know. Maybe after things settle down at work." Things would never settle down at work, and we both knew it. It was just another lie in an increasingly complex web of deception. On Monday, I made a decision that crossed a line I'd never thought I'd cross. I called in sick to work and spent the day following Dana. She went to her office at Premier Events, had lunch with a client, then left at 3 p.m., much earlier than her usual time. Instead of going home, she drove to Elite Gym. I parked across the street and watched through the floor-to-ceiling windows as she worked out with Greg. He was clearly her personal trainer, at least officially. But the way he touched her while correcting her form, the way she looked at him, there was nothing professional about it. After an hour, they left together. This time, they went to his apartment, a trendy loft in the warehouse district. I sat in my car, watching the windows, feeling like a stalker in my own marriage. My phone rang. Dana. "Hey, honey," she said, and I could hear music in the background. "I'm going to be late tonight. Shelley wants to grab dinner after the gym." "Okay," I said, staring up at Greg's apartment window. "Have fun." "Love you." "Love you too." The lies came so easily now, from both of us. That night, I made another decision. I created a fake social media account and started following Greg's public profiles. He was exactly what I'd expected, all gym selfies and motivational quotes about living your best life. He was also married, though his wife rarely appeared in his posts. His wife, Linda Mathis, according to her own social media. A nurse at City General Hospital, pretty in a wholesome way that was the complete opposite of her husband's flashy persona. She posted pictures of their dog, their small garden, date nights at chain restaurants. She had no idea her husband was screwing my wife in motel rooms and his downtown loft. I stared at her photos for a long time, this innocent woman whose life was about to be destroyed by the same man who was destroying mine. We were both victims, but she didn't even know there was a war going on. The next morning, Dana was in an unusually good mood. She hummed while making coffee, kissed me goodbye with actual enthusiasm, and told me she loved me like she meant it. "You seem happy," I said. "I had a good workout yesterday. Endorphins, you know?" "Endorphins. Right. That's great. Maybe I should start going to the gym too." Something flickered across her face. Panic? You hate gyms. People change. Maybe it's time I got in shape. You're fine the way you are, she said quickly. Besides, you're so busy with work. She was protecting her territory, making sure her two worlds didn't collide. It was smart, but it was also another piece of evidence in my growing file. After she left, I sat at our kitchen table with my coffee and my thoughts. The old Neil would have confronted her by now, demanded the truth, maybe even called a lawyer. But the old Neil had trusted his wife, believed in his marriage, thought he was living in a love story instead of a lie. The new Neil was learning to be patient, to plan, to think 3 moves ahead like a chess player. Dana wanted to keep playing games? Fine. But she was about to discover that her husband was better at games than she'd ever imagined. I picked up my phone and started making calls. The first call was to a private investigator named Frank Morrison. I'd found his number online, and his reviews suggested he specialized in marital cases with discretion and thoroughness. I need documentation, I told him during our meeting at a coffee shop downtown. Photos, times, dates, evidence that would hold up in court. Frank was a former cop, gray-haired and serious, with the kind of eyes that had seen too much human nature. How long has this been going on? Months, as far as I can tell. Maybe longer. And you want to file for divorce? Eventually. But first, I want them to face consequences. Frank raised an eyebrow. What kind of consequences? The kind that come from having your secrets exposed. Mr. Carson, I have to ask, you're not planning anything illegal, are you? Nothing illegal, but nothing easy for them, either. Frank nodded slowly. I can get you what you need. Photos, documentation, timeline. It'll cost you. Money's not the issue. It wasn't entirely true. Frank's retainer was substantial, and Dana and I shared bank accounts. But I'd been putting aside cash from overtime for months, originally planning to surprise Dana with a vacation for our anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me. While Frank did his work, I started mine. I began with social media research, diving deep into Greg's online presence. He was active on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, posting constantly about fitness, motivation, and his amazing life. More importantly, he was careless about privacy settings. Through his posts, I learned his schedule, his habits, his favorite places. He worked at Elite Gym Tuesday through Saturday, taught a Saturday morning boot camp class, and spent Sunday afternoons at Murphy's Sports Bar watching football. He also had a pattern of posting photos from his dates with Dana, though he was careful not to include her face. Still, I recognized the restaurants, the hotel rooms, even the view from his apartment window. The man was documenting his own affair. I also researched his wife, Linda. She worked 3 12-hour shifts at the hospital each week, always Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, which meant she was gone exactly when Greg was meeting my wife. Linda's social media painted a picture of a woman trying to save a marriage that was already over. She posted hopeful messages about date nights and working on us, but the photos showed a man who was clearly checked out. In recent pictures, Greg looked like he was going through the motions, his smile never reaching his eyes. She deserved to know the truth. On Thursday, while Dana was supposedly having dinner with Shelley, I drove to City General Hospital. Linda was working the night shift in the ICU, according to the schedule posted online. I didn't approach her directly. Instead, I left an envelope at the nurse's station with her name on it. Inside was a single photo that Frank had taken, Greg and Dana kissing in the parking lot of the Riverside Inn, with a clear view of both their faces and the date stamp. No note, no explanation. Just the photo and a business card for Frank Morrison's investigative services. Let her draw her own conclusions. The next morning, Dana was unusually quiet during breakfast. She kept checking her phone, frowning at the screen. Everything okay? I asked. Greg's wife is causing drama, she said without thinking, then caught herself. I mean, Tara's trainer's wife. There's some kind of situation at the gym. What kind of situation? I don't know. Tara just mentioned it. Dana was backpedaling now, realizing she'd said too much. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Just gym gossip. But it did matter. Linda had gotten my message. That evening, Dana came home early from her girls' night, looking shaken. How was dinner? With Shelley? I asked. Fine, good. She's feeling better about things with Mike. Dana was a terrible liar when she was upset. Whatever had happened with Greg and Linda, it had rattled her. Over the weekend, I escalated my campaign. I'd been monitoring Greg's social media accounts, and on Saturday morning, he posted about his boot camp class at Elite Gym. I come sweat with the best, he wrote, along with a shirtless selfie that made me want to punch something. Instead, I got creative. I created several fake accounts on different platforms and started posting comments on his fitness posts. Nothing obviously malicious, just questions that would make people think. Isn't this the guy whose wife caught him cheating? On his Instagram? My friend saw you at the Riverside Inn with some married woman. Classy. On his Facebook. Elite Gym should know what their trainers do in their spare time. On his Twitter. I wasn't the only one posting either. Linda had apparently shared her discovery with friends, and they were making their opinions known across social media. By Sunday afternoon, Greg's online presence was under siege. He'd deleted several posts and turned off comments on others, but the damage was spreading. Dana spent the weekend anxious and distracted, constantly checking her phone. She claimed she was dealing with a difficult client, but I knew better. On Monday, I took another day off work and followed Dana to her lunch meeting. She met Greg at a small cafe downtown, and even from across the street, I could see they were arguing. Frank had given me a telephoto lens with my camera, and I got clear shots of their heated conversation. Greg looked angry, gesturing wildly. Dana looked scared. Their secret was becoming a liability, and they both knew it. That evening, Dana tried to act normal, but the strain was showing. "How was your day?" she asked over dinner. "Busy. How was yours?" "Fine. Just the usual client stuff." We ate in silence for a few minutes before Dana spoke again. "Neil, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you ever feel like we're growing apart?" The question caught me off guard. Was she having second thoughts about the affair, feeling guilty, or was she setting up some kind of exit strategy? "What makes you ask that?" "I don't know. We just seem different lately. Distant." "Maybe we are," I said carefully. "I don't want that. I don't want us to become one of those couples who just exist in the same house without really connecting." The irony was breathtaking. She was worried about us becoming disconnected while actively maintaining a relationship with another man. "What do you think we should do about it?" I asked. "I don't know. Maybe we could try couples therapy, or take that vacation we talked about." "Maybe." But we both knew it was too late for therapy or vacations. Our marriage was already over. We just hadn't made it official yet. That night, after Dana fell asleep, I sat in our living room and reviewed Frank's latest report. He'd been thorough. Photos, credit card records, hotel receipts, even testimony from a desk clerk at the Riverside Inn who recognized both Dana and Greg. I had enough evidence to destroy them both in divorce court. But I wanted more than a legal victory. I wanted them to understand what it felt like to have their lives turned upside down by someone they'd underestimated. The next morning, Dana announced she was taking a personal day. "Feeling sick?" I asked. "Just need a mental health day. Things have been stressful at work." After she left, presumably to meet Greg and figure out their next move, I made a call to Premier Events. "Hi, this is Neil Carson," I told the receptionist. "I'm Dana Carson's husband. I was wondering if I could speak to her supervisor about planning a surprise party for her." It was a lie, but a harmless one that got me transferred to Janet Mills, Dana's boss. "That's so sweet of you," Janet said. "Dana's lucky to have such a thoughtful husband." "She is pretty special. I was hoping we could coordinate something without her knowing. Maybe you could help me figure out when she'd be free?" "Of course. Let me check her schedule. Actually, I was also wondering. She's been working so many late nights lately. I hope you're not overworking her." "Late nights? Dana usually leaves by 5. She's very good about maintaining work-life balance." There it was. Confirmation that Dana's work emergencies were as fictional as her girls' nights. "Oh, well, maybe I misunderstood," I said. She mentioned some big project that was keeping her busy. "Not that I know of. Her current projects are all pretty standard. Nothing that would require overtime." I thanked Janet and hung up, adding another piece to my evidence file. That afternoon, I drove to Elite Gym. I didn't go inside. I wasn't ready for a direct confrontation yet. But I wanted to see Greg's workplace, understand his environment. Through the windows, I could see him training clients, all smiles and professional enthusiasm. He looked like any other fitness trainer, not like a man whose life was slowly being dismantled. But I noticed something interesting. There was a bulletin board near the front desk with staff information, class schedules, and promotional materials. And right there, in plain view, was a flyer for Greg's bootcamp class with his full name and a professional headshot. Greg Mathis, certified personal trainer, specializing in strength training and life transformation. Life transformation. He had no idea how transformative his life was about to become. I took a photo of the flyer with my phone, then drove home to wait for Dana. She came home that evening looking exhausted and defeated. "How was your mental health day?" I asked. "Good, relaxing. I just stayed home and caught up on some reading." Another lie. Frank. had already sent me photos of Dana and Greg meeting at 3 different locations throughout the day, including a heated argument in the parking lot of his apartment building. "That's nice," I said. "You look tired, though." "Just one of those days, you know?" I knew exactly what kind of day it was. It was the kind of day when your secret affair starts falling apart and you realize you might lose everything. But Dana had no idea how much she was about to lose. After dinner, while she was in the shower, I made one final call. "Frank, it's Neil Carson. I think it's time to move to the next phase." "You sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back." I looked toward our bathroom, where I could hear Dana singing softly in the shower. The same song she used to sing when we were newlyweds, when she was happy, when our marriage was real. "I'm sure," I said. "All right then, let's give them something to really worry about." The next morning started like any other, but I knew it would be the day everything changed. Dana was getting ready for work, humming that same song from the shower, apparently convinced that whatever crisis she and Greg were managing would blow over. She had no idea what was coming. "I'll be late tonight," she said, applying lipstick in our bedroom mirror. "Client dinner." "Which client?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. I'd never asked for details before. The Morrison wedding. Big event next month. Lots of details to work out." I nodded, making a mental note to check with Janet Mills about the Morrison wedding. I was willing to bet it didn't exist. After Dana left, I called in sick to work again. Pete was going to start asking questions soon, but I needed one more day to set everything in motion. Frank met me at the coffee shop with a thick manila envelope. "Everything you asked for," he said, sliding it across the table. "Photos, timeline, financial records, witness statements. Your wife and her boyfriend have been very busy." I opened the envelope and flipped through the contents. Frank had been thorough. There were photos of Dana and Greg at restaurants, hotels, his apartment, even a shopping trip where they'd bought matching workout gear. "There's something else," Frank said. "Greg's wife filed for separation yesterday. She's already moved out of their house." "How do you know?" "I may have encouraged her to hire a good divorce attorney. She's going after everything: the house, his retirement account, even his car." "The Mustang?" Frank grinned. "Especially the Mustang. Turns out it was a gift from her father when they got married. Legally, it's hers." The thought of Greg losing his precious car almost made me smile. Almost. "What about his job?" "That's where you come in. Elite Gym has a morality clause in their employment contracts. Trainers who engage in behavior that reflects poorly on the business can be terminated." Frank handed me another document, a copy of Greg's employment contract, obtained through Linda's divorce attorney. "His boss needs to be made aware of the situation," Frank continued, anonymously, of course. I studied the contract. The morality clause was clearly defined. Any behavior that could damage the gym's reputation or create a hostile work environment was grounds for immediate termination. Having an affair with a married client definitely qualified. "There's one more thing," Frank said. "Your wife's boss might be interested to know that Dana's been using company resources for personal activities." He showed me credit card records indicating that Dana had been charging personal meals and hotel stays to her corporate account, then listing them as client entertainment expenses. "That's embezzlement," I said. "Small scale, but yes, enough to get her fired and possibly prosecuted." I stared at the evidence spread across our table. Frank had given me enough ammunition to destroy both Dana and Greg professionally and personally. "You sure you want to do this?" Frank asked. "There's no coming back from it." "They made their choice," I said. "Now they get to live with the consequences." That afternoon, I put the plan into motion. First, I called Elite Gym and asked to speak to the manager. "This is awkward," I told him, "but I thought you should know about a situation involving one of your trainers." I explained that I'd witnessed Greg Mathis engaging in inappropriate behavior with a married client, including meeting her at hotels during times when he was supposed to be available for other gym members. "I'm not trying to cause trouble," I said, "but my wife is considering joining your gym, and I want to make sure your staff maintains appropriate boundaries." The manager thanked me for the information and assured me they would investigate immediately. Next, I sent an anonymous email to Janet Mills at Premier Events, including copies of Dana's fraudulent expense reports and photos of her with Greg at restaurants she'd claimed were client meetings. "Thought you should know one of your employees is stealing from the company," I wrote. "Check the Morrison wedding expenses. I don't think that client exists." Then I waited. Dana came home that evening looking nervous, but trying to hide it. "How was the client dinner?" I asked. "Good. Productive. We made a lot of progress on the event planning." "That's great. What restaurant did you go to?" That new Italian place on 5th Street. I nodded, making another mental note. Frank had photographed Dana and Greg at a Mexican restaurant on the other side of town. I love Italian food, I said. Maybe we should try it sometime. Sure, maybe. But Dana's mind was clearly elsewhere. She kept checking her phone throughout dinner, frowning at the screen. Everything okay? I asked. Just work stuff. Some last-minute changes to a project. At 9 p.m., her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, and her face went pale. I need to take this, she said, stepping outside. Through our kitchen window, I could see her pacing on our back patio, gesturing wildly as she talked. The conversation lasted 20 minutes, and when she came back inside, she looked shaken. Who was that? Tara. She's having problems with Mike again. Another lie. I was starting to lose count. The next morning, Dana left for work earlier than usual. She barely said goodbye, just grabbed her purse and rushed out the door. An hour later, my phone rang. Frank. It's starting, he said. Greg got fired this morning, effective immediately. What happened? Anonymous tip about inappropriate conduct with clients. The gym manager reviewed security footage and found evidence of Greg using gym facilities for personal meetings during work hours. What about Dana? Her boss called her in for a meeting about discrepancies in her expense reports. She's suspended pending investigation. I felt a surge of satisfaction mixed with something darker. This was really happening. There's more, Frank continued. Linda's divorce attorney subpoenaed Greg's phone records. Everything's going to come out. Text messages, call logs, everything. How long before Dana finds out? Probably already has. Greg's been trying to reach her all morning. That explained Dana's early departure and nervous behavior. I spent the day at home, waiting. At 2 p.m., Dana's car pulled into our driveway. She'd never come home this early on a weekday. She walked into our house looking like she'd been hit by a truck. You're home early, I said from the kitchen table, where I'd been reading the newspaper like I didn't have a care in the world. I got suspended, she said quietly. Suspended? What for? Some kind of accounting issue. They think I misused company funds. Did you? The question hung in the air between us. Dana stared at me, and for a moment, I thought she might tell the truth. No, she said finally. It's all a misunderstanding. I'm sure it is. These things usually work themselves out. But we both knew this wasn't going to work itself out. Dana spent the rest of the day on her phone, having hushed conversations in different rooms. I could hear fragments. I don't know how they found out, and we need to be careful, and this can't be a coincidence. She was starting to realize that her secret affair wasn't so secret anymore. That evening, she barely touched her dinner. You seem upset, I said. I'm fine, just stressed about work. Maybe you should talk to someone. A lawyer, maybe. Dana's head snapped up. Why would I need a lawyer? For the suspension. If they're accusing you of something you didn't do, you should protect yourself. Right, yes, maybe I should. But she looked terrified at the suggestion, which told me everything I needed to know about her innocence. Later that night, after Dana had gone to bed, I sat in our living room and called Frank. How are they handling it? He asked. About as well as you'd expect. Dana's scared, and I'm betting Greg is panicking. It's going to get worse for them. Linda's attorney is planning to subpoena hotel records, credit card statements, everything. This is going to be very public. Good. You sound different, Neil. Colder. He was right. The man who'd started this investigation was gone, replaced by someone harder, more calculating. Someone who'd learned that nice guys don't just finish last. They get betrayed by the people they trust most. They changed me, I said. Just remember, revenge is a dish best served cold, but it can also freeze the person serving it. After I hung up, I walked through our house, looking at 12 years of marriage. Wedding photos, vacation souvenirs, gifts we'd given each other. All of it felt like artifacts from someone else's life. Tomorrow would bring new revelations, new consequences for Dana and Greg's choices. But tonight, I was alone in the house I'd shared with a woman who'd been lying to me for months. I poured myself a glass of whiskey and sat in my chair, waiting for the next phase to begin. The ice was cracking, and soon everything would come crashing down. Friday morning was bitter, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. Dana sat at the table, pale and sleepless, while I read the headline Frank sent me. Local fitness trainer faces fraud charges in divorce proceedings. Greg's photo glared back at me, his career and reputation already crumbling. I printed it, left it on the counter, and watched Dana break when she read it. Soon after, she confessed, 4 months with Greg. I felt nothing but emptiness. She begged to fix things. I told her our marriage had died the moment she chose him. By evening, she was gone with a suitcase. Within weeks, Dana lost her job, Greg lost everything, and their names filled the papers for fraud and embezzlement. Linda, Greg's ex-wife, even brought me evidence, messages proving their affair was longer, uglier, and already rotting from within. By the time the divorce was finalized, Dana had nothing. Greg was in jail. Months later, I saw her in a department store uniform climbing into a beat-up car. We didn't speak. I just went home to my quiet house. I'd learned something. Love without respect is worthless. Trust, once broken, never returns. Some men burn with fire, others endure in ice. I'd found peace in the cold.